Alaric's treasure is one of the most enduring mysteries from the twilight of the Roman Empire. The story begins in 410 AD, a time of great upheaval in the Western Roman Empire. Alaric I, the king of the Visigoths, had already made his mark on history by sacking Rome, an event that shook the very foundations of the ancient world. The Visigoths, a Germanic tribe that had been both adversaries and foederati, allied mercenaries of Rome, had grown increasingly disillusioned with the empire. Alaric, once a Roman military commander, turned against his former employees after being denied land and recognition for his people. After the sack of Rome, the Visigoths fled southward through Italy. They carried with them a vast amount of plunder, including gold, silver, and priceless artifacts taken from the Eternal City. Alaric's sudden death in the autumn of 410 added a new layer of mystery to the tale. The exact location of his death is unknown, but the historical accounts suggest it was in Calabria, near the modern city of Cosenza. According to legend, Alaric was buried along with his treasure in a secret grave designed to keep it hidden from the world forever. The method of Alaric's burial is both ingenious and daunting. It is said that the Visigoths diverted the course of Bacento River to create a dry riverbed. Alaric's body, along with his treasure, was interred in a tomb constructed in the riverbed. Once the tomb was sealed, the river was allowed to return to its natural course, effectively burying the king and his hoard under a flowing river. The workers who performed the burial were allegedly killed to ensure the location remained secret, a grim but effective method of protecting the treasure's whereabouts. The dramatic burial story has captivated treasure hunters and historians for centuries. The treasure allegedly includes gold and silver taken from Rome, potentially even sacred artifacts from the Temple of Jerusalem that had been brought to Rome by the Emperor Titus after his conquest of Jerusalem in 70 AD. If true, the value of the treasure is beyond estimation, not just in monetary terms, but in historical and cultural significance. Despite numerous searches over the centuries, no definitive evidence of Alaric's grave or his treasure has ever been found. The area of Cosenza has been a focal point for these searches, given its historical connections to the Visigoths and the local legends that persist to this day. In the late 19th century and throughout the 20th century, several archaeological expeditions were conducted, some of them even diverting rivers and digging extensively in the region. However, these efforts have yielded no trace of the fabled hoard. The story of Alaric's treasure is often intertwined with local folklore and rich tapestry of Italian legends. It serves as a powerful reminder of the transient nature of power and wealth. Alaric, a formidable warrior king who had once brought Rome to its knees, now lies somewhere, possibly with his immense wealth, in an unmarked grave lost to time. His treasure, if it exists, symbolizes the fleeting glory of conquest and the enduring allure of hidden riches. In modern times, Alaric's treasure continues to spark the imagination. It is a popular subject in literature, films, and television shows, often portrayed as the ultimate archaeological prize. The mystery of the location and the dramatic tale of its burial makes it a perfect blend of history and legend, capturing the enduring human fascination with lost treasure and ancient secrets. The legend of Alaric's treasure is more than just a tale of hidden gold. It is a narrative that reflects the turbulent times during the fall of the Western Roman Empire. It highlights the desperation and ingenuity of a displaced people, the impermanence of power, and the lengths to which individuals will go to protect what they hold dear. Whether the treasure will ever be found remains an open question, but its legend continues to grow, ensuring that Alaric's name and his mysterious hoard will be remembered for generations to come. Dutch Sulch, born Arthur Flagenheim, was a notorious American gangster during the Prohibition era, known for his bootlegging operations and violent methods. His life was marred by crime and controversy, but one of the most enduring mysteries associated with Mr. Sulch is the legend of his hidden treasure, which is believed to have been buried somewhere in Catskills Mountains of upstate New York. The tale begins in the mid-1930s, when Sulch, facing legal troubles and fearing for his financial future, supposedly decided to stash away a large portion of his wealth. Sulch had amassed considerable riches through various illegal activities, including bootlegging, gambling and extortion. Concerned about potential seizures by the authorities or theft by rivals, Sulch reportedly had a steel safe or strongbox filled with money and valuables, including gold coins, $1,000 bills, diamonds and other precious items. According to the legend, Sulch, along with his bodyguard and trusted associate Lulu Rosencrantz, drove up from New York City to Catskills with the safe. They chose a secluded spot in the dense forests of the regions, where they buried the safe. The exact location was only known to Schultz and Rosencrantz. Intended to be a safeguard against legal and personal threats Sulch was facing at the time. However, the plan to retrieve the treasure, if needed, was thwarted by sudden developments. In October 1935, Dutch Sulch was fatally shot at the Palace Chop House in Newark, New Jersey, by assassins sent by rival mobsters, possibly with the sanction of the Commission, the governing body of the American Mafia. Rosencrantz was also killed around the same time. With both men dead, the knowledge of the exact location of the treasure died with them. Over the decades, the story of Dutch Schultz's hidden treasure has captivated treasure hunters, historians and enthusiasts. Multiple expeditions have been launched to find the treasure, with hopefuls combing through various parts of the Catskills Mountains, especially around the town of Valencia, where some believe the treasure might be buried. These searches have been fueled by clues purportedly left by Sulch, vague references in historical documents, and the analysis of Schultz's known movements during his final days. Despite these efforts, the treasure remains undiscovered and skepticism about existence persists. Some historians question the veracity of the tale, suggesting it might be more a myth than reality. Others believe that even if Sulch did bury some valuables, they might have been discovered and quietly recovered without the public knowledge. The legend of Dutch Sulch's treasure is a quintessential example of the mix of fact and folklore that often surrounds historical figures with criminal past. It reflects the intrigue of hidden wealth and the allure of unsolved mystery. Whether or not the treasure is ever found, the story adds a layer of mystique to the already colourful life of one of America's most infamous gangsters, keeping the legacy of Dutch Schultz alive in popular culture and the imagination of treasure seekers. Egil Skallagrimsson, an iconic figure in Icelandic history, is renowned not only for his prowess as a warrior, but also for his exceptional skills as a poet. He lived during the Viking Age, around the 10th century, and his life and deeds are immortalized in the Icelandic sagas, particularly Egil's saga. Among the many tales surrounding Egil, one of the most intriguing is the legend about his hidden silver treasure. Egil was born around 910 AD in Borg, Iceland, to a family of Norse chieftains. His father, Skallagrimur Kloved Dufferson, was a formidable Viking and settler in Iceland. Egil's life was marked by a series of dramatic events, including family feuds, battles and voyages. Despite his often violent and turbulent life, Egil was a gifted poet. His poetry, known as Skaldic poetry, is considered some of the finest in Old Norse literature. The legend of Egil's silver centers around the later years of his life. According to the sagas, Egil amassed a significant amount of wealth during his lifetime through various means, including Viking raids, gifts from kings, and successful trade ventures. By the time he reached old age, Egil was a wealthy man. However, his wealth also brought him many enemies and made him a target for those seeking to claim his riches. As Egil grew older, he became increasingly reclusive and distrustful of those around him. Fearing that his wealth would be seized after his death, he decided to hide his silver. The sagas describe how, in his 80s, Egil went on a journey with 2 chests filled with silver. He travelled to a remote and undisclosed location in the Icelandic countryside, where he is said to have buried the chest. Egil took his secret to the grave, never revealing the exact location of the buried treasure. The story of Egil's hidden silver has captured the imagination of many over centuries. Treasure hunters and enthusiasts have speculated about the possible location of the buried chests, but no definitive evidence has ever been found. The search for Egil's silver remains one of Iceland's enduring mysteries, with various theories suggesting different areas areas near his ancestral home in Borg or other parts of Iceland he was known to frequent. Egil's motivation for hiding his treasure is rooted in the context of his life and the culture of his time. The Viking Age was a period of constant conflict and power struggles. Wealth was not only a measure of a person's success, but also a source of power and influence. By hiding his silver, Egil may have intended to protect it from potential usurpers and ensure that it did not fall into the hands of his enemies. However, the act of burying treasure was not uncommon amongst Vikings, who often concealed their wealth to safeguard it for future generations or anticipation of their own return. The saga of Egil Skallagrimsson and his hidden silver also reflects the themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the transcendent nature of life and wealth. Egil's distrust of those around him, even in his old age, underscores the precariousness of his position and the volatile environment in which he lived. His decision to hide his wealth can be seen as a final act of defiance and control over his own fate. In Icelandic culture, Egil Skallagrimsson is celebrated not only as a historical figure, but also as a cultural icon. His poetry is studied and admired for its emotional depth, complexity, and technical skill. The legend of his hidden silver adds another layer to his enigmatic persona, blending historical fact with myth and legend. It serves as a reminder of the rich and complex history of the Viking Age, a time when individuals like Egil navigated the world of violence, honor, and artistic expression. To this day, the tale of Egil Skallagrimsson's silver continues to intrigue and inspire. It stands as a testament to the enduring legacy of one of Iceland's most fascinating figures, whose life and works have left an undeniable mark on the country's history and cultural heritage. The mystery of the buried treasure remains unsolved, a tantalizing clue to the past waiting to be discovered by future generations. The tale of La Noche Triste, or The Night of Sorrows, is one of the most dramatic and tragic episodes in the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire. It occurred on the night of June the 30th to July the 1st, 1520, and was marked by the desperate escape of Spanish conquistadors from the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. This event is inextricably linked to the legendary lost treasure that the Spanish attempted to carry with them, only to lose it in the chaotic retreat. The story begins with Hernán Cortés, a Spanish conquistador who led an expedition that caused the fall of the Aztec Empire. After initially forging an uneasy alliance with the Aztecs, Cortés and his men found themselves in a precarious situation. Tensions had been building for months, exuberated by the capture of the Aztec Emperor Moctezuma II, who was taken hostage by the Spanish to ensure their safety and compliance. Despite these measures, the Spanish presence in Tenochtitlan became increasingly untenable. The Aztecs, under the leadership of Cuitlahua, Moctezuma's brother, grew more hostile. Their resentment culminated in a fierce uprising against the Spanish occupiers. Moctezuma, coerced into addressing his people in an attempt to quell the rebellion, was struck by stones and mortally wounded. His death further inflamed the situation, making the Spanish position in the city increasingly dangerous. Recognizing the dire circumstances, Cortés decided to flee the city under the cover of darkness. He planned the escape meticulously, intending to slip away during the night when the Aztec warriors would be less vigilant. On that fateful night, the Spanish, along with their Tlaxcalan allies, attempted to make their way out of Tenochtitlan across the causeways that connected the island city to the mainland. The Spanish carried with them vast amounts of treasure, including gold, silver, and precious stones. This wealth, accumulated through the plunder and as tribute from the Aztecs, was a significant burden. Despite Cortés's orders to leave the heavy treasures behind to facilitate a swift escape, many of his men, driven by greed, refused to comply. They loaded themselves with as much loot as they could carry, slowing their progress and making them vulnerable. As the Spanish and their allies made their way across the causeways, they were discovered by Aztec warriors. A fierce battle ensued, with the Aztecs Aztecs launching relentless attacks from canoes and the causeway itself. The weight of the treasure and the narrow exposed causeways made the Spanish retreat chaotic and deadly. Many Spaniards, weighed down by their plunder, fell into the waters of Lake Texcoco and drowned. Many were killed by Aztec warriors in a brutal melee. The retreat turned into a rout, with many Spaniards and their Tlaxcalan allies perishing in the escape. The causeways were littered with bodies and abandoned treasure. The once organised retreat had devolved into a desperate struggle for survival. By the time the survivors reached the mainland, the Spanish had suffered significant casualties, and much of the treasure they sought to protect was lost to the lake. This night came to be known as La Noche Triste, or the Night of Sorrows, due to the heavy losses suffered by the Spanish. Cortes himself reportedly wept under a tree, lamenting the disastrous turn of events and the loss of so many men, so much wealth. Despite this setback, Cortes would eventually regroup, forming new alliances and returning to lay siege on Tenochtitlan, ultimately leading to the fall of the Aztec Empire in 1521. The lost treasure of La Noche Triste remains one of the great mysteries of the Spanish conquest. The gold, silver and jewels that sank into the waters of Lake Texcoco have never been fully recovered. Over the centuries, many treasure hunters and archaeologists have searched for the remnants of this lost wealth, but it remains elusive, buried beneath layers of sediment and the passage of time. La Noche Triste stands as a poignant reminder of the cost of conquest and the fleeting nature of wealth. It encapsulates the tragic clash of civilizations and the human greed that often accompanies such encounters. The legend of the lost treasure endures, symbolizing the high stakes and profound consequences of the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire. Llewellyn's coronet, a symbol of Welsh independence and royal heritage, holds a significant place in the history of Wales, associated with Llewellyn ap Gruffudd, the last sovereign prince of Wales. The coronet represents a poignant reminder of Wales's struggle for autonomy against English domination. The fate of Llewellyn's coronet is intertwined with the broader narratives of Welsh resistance, conquest, and the eventual assimilation into the English crown. Llewellyn ap Gruffudd, also known as Llewellyn the Last, ruled as Prince of Wales from 1258 until his death in 1282. His reign was marked by efforts to consolidate the Welsh territory and assert independence from England. Despite numerous conflicts and negotiations, Llewellyn sought to maintain Welsh autonomy in the face of increasing pressure from the English crown, particularly from King Edward I. In 1277, following a series of military campaigns, Llewellyn was forced to submit to Edward I and sign a treaty of Aberconwy. This treaty significantly limited his power and reduced his territorial control. However, the tensions between Wales and England persisted, leading to further conflicts. In 1282, Llewellyn launched a final uprising against English rule, which ultimately led to his death in battle near Bullif Wells on December 11, 1282. The coronet of Llewellyn ap Gruffudd was not just a symbol of his rule, but also of Welsh sovereignty. After Llewellyn's death, the coronet, along with other royal artifacts, was seized by English forces. Edward I, determined to stamp out Welsh resistance, took these symbols of Welsh royalty to London. The coronet was placed in the treasury of Westminster Abbey alongside the English crown jewels as a tangible sign of the subjugation of Wales. In 1303, during the reign of Edward I's son, Edward II, Westminster Abbey was subjected to a significant robbery. A group of robbers, including some of the Abbey's own monks, managed to steal a considerable amount of treasure from the Abbey's treasury. Among the stolen items were the coronet of Llewellyn ap Gruffudd and other royal artifacts. Although some of the treasures were eventually recovered, the coronet of Llewellyn was never found. The loss of Llewellyn's coronet remains shrouded in mystery and speculation. Its disappearance symbolises the loss of Welsh royal heritage and the assimilation of Wales into the English crown. Despite its loss, the coronet's legacy endures in Welsh culture and history as a symbol of resistance and the enduring spirit of Welsh independence. The story of Llewellyn's coronet is more than just a tale of the missing artifact. It is a reflection of the broader historical context intermixed medieval Wales. The coronet represents the aspirations of a people for self-determination and the struggles to preserve their cultural identity in the face of external conquest. Llewellyn Al Gruffudd's efforts to maintain Welsh independence, although ultimately unsuccessful, left an undeniable mark on the history of Wales. Today, the legacy of Llewellyn and his coronet continues to resonate in Wales. The coronet, though lost, is remembered as a symbol of Welsh pride and resilience. It serves as a reminder of a time when Wales fought valiantly to maintain its sovereignty and cultural heritage. The story of Llewellyn's coronet is a poignant chapter in the history of Wales, encapsulating the enduring struggle for autonomy and the preservation of a distinct national identity. The story of the lost Inca gold is one of the most compelling and enduring legends in the history of the Spanish conquest of the Americas. It revolves around the immense wealth of the Inca Empire and the dramatic events that unfolded following the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors, led by Francisco Pizarro. Central to this tale is the figure of Atahualpa, the last emperor of the Incas, whose capture and subsequent ransom demand set the stage for one of history's most tantalizing treasure mysteries. In the early 16th century, the Inca Empire was the largest and most sophisticated civilization in pre-Columbian America, stretching from modern-day Colombia to Chile. The Incas had amassed vast quantities of gold and silver, which they used not only for decorative and ceremonial purposes, but also as offerings to their god. This wealth, however, would soon attract the attention of European invaders. In 1532, Francisco Pizarro and his small band of conquistadors arrived in Inca territory. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the Spaniards managed to capture Atahualpa, and during the Battle of Cajamarca, realizing the value the Spaniards placed on gold, Atahualpa offered to fill a large room with gold and another with silver in exchange for his release. Pizarro agreed, and over the next several months, the Incas gathered an enormous amount of treasure from across the empire, including exquisite artifacts and religious items. The room was filled with gold up to the height of about 8 feet, while the adjoining room was filled twice over with silver. The treasure included intricately crafted statues, jewelry, and other items of immense cultural and monetary value. The ransom is estimated to be amounted at about 24 tons of gold and silver. Despite fulfilling the ransom demand, Atahualpa was not released. The Spanish, fearing a potential rebellion and seeing Atahualpa as a threat to their control over the region, ultimately executed him. This betrayal marked the beginning of the end for the Inca Empire, as the Spanish continued their campaign to conquer and subjugate the Inca people. The fate of the ransomed treasure is subject to much speculation and intrigue. While a significant portion of gold and silver was melted down and shipped to Spain, enriching the Spanish crown and contributing to the wealth of the conquistador, a considerable amount of treasure is believed to have been hidden or lost during the chaotic events that followed Atahualpa's execution. According to various legends, the Inca nobles, upon realizing the betrayal of the Spanish, decided to hide or relocate the remaining treasure to prevent it falling into enemy hands. Some accounts suggest that vast quantities of gold were secreted away in remote and inaccessible locations in the Andes Mountains, deep within caves or submerged in lakes. One particularly enduring legend is that of the lost Inca gold, which claims that the treasure was transported to a secret location known only by the few surviving Inca loyalists. Over the centuries, numerous expeditions have been launched in search of the lost Inca gold. Adventurers, archaeologists, and treasure hunters have scoured the Andean mountains, valleys, and jungles, driven by tales of hidden riches and the promise of untold wealth. Despite the efforts of many, the exact location of the treasure has remained elusive, fueling ongoing speculation and fascination. The story of the lost Inca gold is not only a tale of greed and betrayal, but also one of cultural loss and the devastating impact of European colonization on indigenous civilizations of the Americas. The Inca Empire's treasures were not merely valuable in monetary terms, they held deep religious and cultural significance. The loss of these artifacts represents a profound cultural tragedy, as priceless pieces of Inca heritage were either destroyed or disappeared. Today, the legend legend of the lost Inca gold continues to captivate the imagination. It serves as a symbol of rich history and heritage of the Inca civilization, as well as a reminder of the enduring mysteries that still lie hidden in the remote regions of South America. While the physical treasure may remain lost, the story itself is a valuable part of our collective history, shedding light on the complexities and consequences of the Spanish conquest of the New World. Nelson's Knowlege was a remarkable and historically significant jewel awarded to British Admiral Horatio Nelson by the Ottoman Empire after his victory at the Battle of the Nile in 1798. This battle was crucial as it thwarted Napoleon Bonaparte's ambitions in the east and significantly boosted British naval prestige. The Knowlege was not just a military decoration, but a symbol of gratitude and admiration from the Ottoman Sultan Selim III towards Nelson, reflecting the geopolitical alliances at the time. The Knowlege was crafted from diamonds arranged to resemble a plume of feathers, and a design inspired by traditional Turkish military helmet ornament. It featured 13 rays, each tipped with a diamond, and was initially designed to be worn on Nelson's hat, akin to how Ottoman officers wore their feather plumes. The centerpiece of the Knowlege was a large central diamond that rotated, powered by a small watch mechanism, which added to its uniqueness and splendor. Nelson took great pride in wearing the Knowlege, not just because of its intrinsic beauty and value, but also because it represented recognition for his naval prowess by a foreign power. He wore it on his naval uniform, making it a prominent part of his appearance. The Knowlege became synonymous with Nelson's persona, enhancing his image in British society, where he was celebrated as a national hero. However, the story of Nelson's Knowlege took a tragic turn after Nelson's death at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. The Knowlege passed through various hands and was eventually bequeathed to the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, which was one of Nelson's descendants in 1937. It was displayed there as part of a collection celebrating Nelson's life and naval career. The jewel's journey ended abruptly and shockingly in 1951 when it was stolen from the museum under mysterious circumstances. Despite investigations and widespread media coverage at the time, the Knowlege was never recovered, and details of the theft remain largely unclear. The loss of such an iconic piece of naval and national heritage was a significant blow to the museum and those who valued the historical connection it represented. Today, Nelson's Knowlege continues to captivate the imagination of one of the lost treasures of maritime history. Its disappearance adds a layer of mystery and intrigue to an already legendary figure in British naval lore. The Knowlege not only symbolised Nelson's achievements and the respect he commanded, but also the broader narrative of maritime exploration, military heroism, and a cross-cultural exchange in the age of sail. Tale of Raphael's Lost Painting, Portrait of a Young Man, encapsulates the dramatic narrative of art, war and mystery. Raphael, born Raffaello Sanzino in 1483, was one of the luminaries of a high Renaissance, an artist whose influence on the development of Western art is immeasurable. Among his many celebrated works, Portrait of a Young Man holds a particular intrigue, not only for its artistic merit, but also for its disappearance during one of the darkest periods in modern history. Created between 1513 to 1514, Portrait of a Young Man is considered one of Raphael's masterpieces in portraiture, showcasing his skills in capturing the subtlety, expression and complexity of human introspection. The painting is believed to depict a nobleman of the period, possibly a close associate or patron of Raphael, although the exact identity of the subject remains unknown. The work is renowned for its detailed representation of a young man's attire and the contemplative, almost melancholic expression on his face, which offers a window into the personality and mood of the sitter. The painting exemplifies Raphael's prowess and in blending realism with idealism, a hallmark in his mature period. The painting's history took a dramatic turn in World War II. Prior to the war, Portrait of a Young Man was part of Chartrowski's Skorupski's collection in Krakow, Poland. However, in 1939, as Nazi forces invaded Poland, the painting was among the numerous artworks seized by the Nazis. Adolf Hitler's regime was notorious for plundering art across Europe, intending either to destroy works deemed degenerate or collect them for Hitler's proposed Führer Museum in Linz, Austria. Portrait of a Young Man was last seen in January 1945. As the war neared its end and the Third Reich's defeat became imminent, Nazi officials were ordered to secure and transport looted artworks to safer locations. During this chaotic period, many artworks were moved from their hiding places. It is during such one transfer that Portrait of a Young Man is believed to have disappeared. The details of its transit are murky, compounded by widespread chaos and the destruction of the final months of war. Since the end of World War II, the whereabouts of Portrait of a Young Man have remained a mystery. Despite extensive investigations and numerous false leads, no concrete evidence of its location has surfaced. The painting is often listed amongst the most important missing artworks of the 20th century. Its loss is not just a cultural tragedy for Poland, but also a significant void in a global artistic heritage. Over the decades, various efforts have been made to locate and recover Portrait of a Young Man. This includes appeals to the public, engagement with international law enforcement agencies, and the use of modern technology to trace and authenticate artworks. The search is further complicated by the possibility that the painting, if it still exists, could be hidden in a private collection, unknown and unrecognizable due to the possible damage or deliberate alteration. The disappearance of Raphael's Portrait of a Young Man continues to captivate historians, art lovers, and treasure hunters alike. The story is a poignant reminder of the devastating impact of war on cultural heritage and the enduring importance of protecting and preserving art for the future generations. The hope remains that one day this masterpiece will be found and return to its rightful place in the annals of history. Throughout history, several saints have been credited with performing extraordinary miracles. One of the miracles that intrigue many people are the accounts of saints who are able to raise the dead. These accounts often serve to underscore their sainticity and divine favor. Here are some notable examples. Saint Peter, one of Jesus' apostles, is renowned for raising Tabitha, Dorcas, from the dead. According to the Acts of the Apostles, Acts 9:36-42, Tabitha was a beloved disciple known for her good works and acts of charity. When she fell ill and died, the believers in Joppa sent for Peter. Upon arriving, Peter prayed over her body and said, "Tabitha, get up." She opened her eyes and sat up. The news of this miracle spread throughout Joppa, leading many to believe in the Lord. Saint Paul, another prominent apostle, is credited with raising Eutychus from the dead. In Acts 27-12, while Paul was preaching in the Taurus, a young man named Eutychus fell asleep and tumbled from a third-story window. He was picked up but dead. When Paul went down and embraced him, he said, "Do not be alarmed, for his life is in him." Eutychus was restored to life, and Paul continued to speak until the morning. Saint Francis of Poland, the founder of the Order of Minims, was known for numerous miracles, including raising the dead. One notable account involves a man named John Scorbuto. John had died, and his family had asked Francis for help. After praying frequently, Francis called upon John to arise in the name of Jesus Christ, and John was miraculously restored to life. Saint Patrick, the patron saint of Ireland, is traditionally credited with raising several people from the dead. One of his most famous accounts involved him reviving a man named Auden, who had died. According to the legend, Patrick prayed over Auden, who was then brought back to life, further solidifying Patrick's reputation and aiding his mission to convert the Irish to Christianity. Saint Vincent Ferrer, a Dominican friar and missionary, is said to have performed countless miracles, including raising the dead. One of the most famous instances occurred in Salamanca, Spain, where he brought a man named Pedro back to life. This miracle greatly contributed to Vincent's reputation as a powerful preacher and healer. Saint Stanislaus of Szepano, the bishop of Krakow, is celebrated for raising a man named Peter from the dead. According to tradition, Peter was a witness in a legal dispute involving the king, and his testimony was crucial. After Peter's death, Stanislaus prayed over his grave, and Peter arose and provided the necessary testimony before returning to his rest. This miracle is one of the reasons Stanislas is venerated as a patron saint of Poland. Saint Catherine of Siena, a Dominican territory and doctor of the church, is said to have performed numerous miracles, including raising the dead. One account involves the resurrection of a woman named Nicolosa, who had died suddenly. Catherine prayed frequently, and Nicolosa was restored to life, which bolstered Catherine's reputation for holiness and divine favour. Saint Martin de Porres, a lay brother of the Dominican order in Lima, Peru, is credited with raising a young girl from the dead. According to the accounts, the girl had died, and Martin, known for his profound compassion and miraculous ability, prayed over her body. She was miraculously brought back to life, further attesting to Martin's deep faith and connection with the divine. Saint Philip Neri, the founder of the order, is said to have raised a boy named Paolo Mamissino from the dead. Paolo was the son of a friend of Philip, and when he died, Philip prayed intensely for his restoration. Paolo was brought back to life, an event that deeply affected those who witnessed it and enhanced Philip's spiritual reputation. Saint Anthony of Padua, a Franciscan friar, is also credited with raising the dead. One well-known story involves a young man whose heart had turned to stone because of his cruelty to his mother. After his death, Saint Anthony's prayer restored the young man's life, leading to his repentance and conversion. Sister Magdalena of the Cross is one of the most intriguing and controversial figures in the history of Catholic mysticism. Born in 1487 in Cordoba, Spain, she joined the convent of Franciscan nuns and quickly gained a reputation for her piety and extraordinary spiritual experiences. However, her life took a dramatic turn when it was discovered that many of her mystical phenomena were deceitful and her path to sainthood was marred by scandal. Sister Magdalena claimed to have experienced mystical phenomena from a young age. She was said to have had visions, performed miracles, and received many stigmata. Her apparent sanctity and spiritual gifts drew admiration from many, including ecclesiastical authorities. People believed that she had a direct line to the divine, and she was often consulted for her supposed prophetic insights. One of her most famous claims was that she had made a pact with the devil at the age of 5. According to her later confession, she entered into this pact to gain fame and admiration. As part of the pact, she was promised the ability to perform miraculous feats and to deceive many people. She maintained this deception for decades, all while living in convent and being revered as a living saint. Over the years, numerous reports of her miraculous activities spread far and wide. She was believed to have levitated, bilocated, and even to have foreseen future events. Her fame grew and she became a well-known figure not only in Spain but also across Europe. However, alongside the admiration, there were always skeptics who doubted the authenticities of her experiences. The turning point in Sister Magdalena's life came in 1543 when she fell gravely ill. Believing she was near death, she confessed to the fraudulent nature of her mystical phenomena and her pact with the devil. This confession sent shockwaves through the religious community. The church initiated a thorough investigation into the claims and her life. During the investigation, it was revealed that many of the miracles attributed to her were in fact fabricated. Her confession included detailed accounts of how she had deceived her fellow nuns, the clergy, and the faithful. She admitted that her stigmata were self-inflicted wounds and that she had used various tricks to create the appearance of miraculous events. The church's response to Sister Magdalena's confession was severe. She was subjected to a rigorous penitential regime and was isolated from the other nuns in her convent. Despite her fall from grace, she expressed genuine remorse for her actions and spent her remaining years of her life in penance and prayer. She died in 1560, having lived the final years of her life in relative obscurity compared to her earlier fame. Sister Magdalena of the Cross's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of deceit and the complexities of spiritual phenomena. It highlights the church's role in discerning true mystical experiences from false ones and the importance of humility and integrity in the pursuit of spiritual greatness. Her life, marked by both extraordinary claims and profound deception, remains a fascinating chapter in the history of mysticism and religious experience. Saint Catherine Labour, born Zoe Labour on May 2nd, 1806, in the small village of Fain-les-Montiers in Burgundy, France, was the ninth of 11 children in a devoutly Catholic farming family. At the age of 9, her mother passed away, and Catherine took on many household responsibilities. She developed a deep devotion to the Virgin Mary, often seeking solace and guidance in her faith. Despite her father's initial opposition, Catherine felt a strong calling to religious life. At the age of 24, she joined the Daughters of Charity of Saint Vincent de Paul, a community dedicated to serving the poor and sick. She entered the convent on the Rue de Bac in Paris in January. In 1830, Catherine began experiencing a series of visions that would forever change her life and leave a lasting impact on the Catholic Church. The first apparition occurred on July the 18th, 1830. Catherine was awakened by a child whom she identified as her guardian angel, who led her to the convent's chapel. There she encountered the Virgin Mary, who appeared as a beautiful, serene woman seated on an altar. Mary spoke to Catherine, revealing that she would be given a special mission and that she would encounter many difficulties, but she should not be afraid. The Virgin Mary also shared with her a prophecy about the future of France and the world, including impending times of great trouble and strife. The most significant apparition took place on November the 27th, 1830, during evening prayers at the convent chapel. Catherine saw the Virgin Mary standing on a globe, with rays of light streaming from her outstretched hand. The rays, Mary explained, represent the graces she bestowed upon those who asked for them. Around the figure of Mary was an inscription: "O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee." In this vision, Mary instructed Catherine to have a medal struck based on this image. On the reverse side of the medal, Mary explained, should feature a large letter M surmounted by a cross with a sacred heart of Jesus and Mary below it, surrounded by 12 stars. Catherine shared these visions with her spiritual director, Father Aladel, who was initially skeptical. However, he eventually became convinced of the authenticity of her experiences and sought approval from the Archbishop of Paris to proceed with the creation of the medal. In 1832, the first miraculous medals were produced and distributed in Paris. These medals quickly gained popularity among the faithful due to the many reported miracles and conversions attributed to their use. Stories of healings, protections, and other extraordinary events began to circulate, leading to widespread devotion to the miraculous medal. The devotion to the miraculous medals spread rapidly across the world, becoming one of the most significant sacramentals in the Catholic Church. The medal serves as a tangible reminder of the Virgin Mary's intercessory power and her role in guiding the faithful towards a life of grace and holiness. Millions of people, including saints, popes, and ordinary believers, have worn the miraculous medal as a sign of their devotion to Mary and their trust in her protection and intercession. Saint Catherine Labour, despite the extraordinary nature of her experiences, remained humble and sought a life of quiet service. She did not reveal her role in the apparitions to anyone except her confessor, maintaining a life of anonymity. She continued to work diligently in the convent, caring for the elderly and sick. It was only shortly before her death on December 31st, 1876, that she disclosed her identity as the recipient of the apparition. In 1933, her body was exhumed as part of the canonization process. It was found to be incorrupt, a sign of her sanctity. Her remains were transferred to a glass coffin in the chapel of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal on Rue de Bac in Paris, where they remain to this day. Pilgrims from around the world visit the chapel to pay their respects and seek the intercession of Saint Catherine Labour. Saint Catherine was canonized by Pope Pius XII on July the 27th, 1947, recognizing her virtuous life and the profound impact of her vision. The miraculous medal continues to be a powerful symbol of faith, hope, and maternal care of the Virgin Mary. It encourages the faithful to seek Mary's intercession and to live lives of devotion and grace. The story of Saint Catherine Labour and the miraculous medal remains a testament to the enduring power of faith and the miraculous ways in which the divine can touch and transform human lives. Saint Gemma Galgani, often referred to as the Gem of Christ, is a celebrated figure in the Catholic Church, known for her deep spirituality, mystical experiences, and profound devotion to Jesus Christ. Born on March 12, 1878 in the small Italian town of Camigliano, near Lucca. Gemma's life was marked by extraordinary piety and suffering, which she embraced with unwavering faith and love for God. From a young age, Gemma displayed an intense spirituality. Her mother died when she was 7, and her father passed away when she was 19, leaving her an orphan. Despite these early tragedies, Gemma's faith only deepened. She was known for her charitable nature, caring for her younger siblings, and devoting herself to prayer and acts of kindness. Gemma's mystical experiences began to manifest more prominently in her early 20s. She experienced visions of Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and her guardian angel. These visions were not just passive experiences. Gemma often engaged in profound conversions with these celestial beings. Her biographers note that she received the stigmata, the wounds of Christ, on the 8th of June 1899. This phenomenon, which she experienced weekly from Thursday evening to Friday afternoon, was accompanied by intense physical and spiritual suffering, mirroring the Passion of Christ. Despite her mystical experiences, Gemma remained deeply humble and obedient to her spiritual directors. She documented her visions and experiences in her diaries, which provide a rich insight into her spiritual life. These writings reveal her intense love for Jesus and her desire to suffer for the salvation of souls, aligning her own sufferings with those of Christ. Gemma's health, however, was frail. She suffered from various illnesses throughout her life, including spinal tuberculosis, Despite her physical ailments, she continued to live a life of deep prayer and sacrifice. Her final illness struck in early 1903, and she bore the suffering with remarkable fortitude. Gemma passed away on the 11th of April 1903 at the age of 25. After her death, the fame of Gemma's sanctity spread rapidly. Numerous miracles and graces were attributed to her intercession. Her canonization process began in 1917, and she was beatified by Pope Pius XI in 1993. Pope Pius XI canonized her as a saint on May 2, 1940, recognizing her as a model of Christian virtue and a powerful intercessor. Saint Gemma Galgani is often depicted in religious art with a stigmata and holding a crucifix, symbolizing her deep connection with the Passion of Christ. She is a patron saint of students, pharmacists, and those suffering from back pain and spinal injuries. Her legacy continues to inspire many around the world. The sanctuary dedicated to her in Lucca, Italy, attracts thousands of pilgrims every year. Saint Gemma's life and writings remain a testament to the power of faith, love, and sacrifice, embodying the essence of what it means to be a true gem of Christ. Her story encourages believers to embrace their own sufferings with courage and trust in the transformative power of divine love. The Antwerp diamond heist, dubbed the heist of the century, is one of the most notorious thefts in the history of crime. It took place over the weekend of February the 15th and 16th in 2003 at the Antwerp Diamond Centre in Belgium, where a meticulously executed operation led to the breach of a supposedly impenetrable vault. The thieves made off with an estimated 100 million in loose diamonds, gold and other jewellery, making it one of the largest diamond heists ever. The Diamond Centre in Antwerp, a city at the heart of the world diamond trade, housed vaults in which numerous diamond brokers stored their goods in safety deposit boxes. The security at the Diamond Centre was formidable, a 10-layered security system that included infrared heat detectors, seismic sensor, Doppler radar and a magnetic field. The vault itself was protected by a lock with more than 100 million possible combinations, as well as a series of keys and magnetic cards required for access. The mastermind behind the heist was Leonardo Nota Bartolo, a seasoned thief with deep connections in the Italian underworld. Nota Bartolo rented an office in the Diamond Centre 2 years prior to the heist, granting him legitimate 24-hour access to the building. Over time, he and his team, known as the School of Turin for their precision and expertise in theft, meticulously planned the heist. They reportedly used video surveillance, practiced picking locks, and even obtained a replica of the vault door to perfect their method. The operation was executed with high precision. The gang managed to bypass all the security systems, including the sophisticated vault door mechanism. They reportedly used aluminium tape to trick the magnetic sensors and recorded over security cameras to cover their movements. The exact details of how they managed to disarm the sophisticated security system remain partly speculative, but are believed to involve the combination of technical expertise and inside knowledge. Once inside the vault, the thieves took their time to select the most valuable goods, leaving behind less valuable items and ensuring they only took what they could realistically sell on the black market. Total haul was so significant that they could not carry everything and had to leave some behind. Nota Bartolo was arrested after police found evidence linking him to the crime, including DNA evidence on a partially eaten sandwich near the crime scene. In 2005, he was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nota Bartolo claimed that he was part of a larger conspiracy and that the heist was a commissioned job, suggesting that other, more influential figures were involved and that the stolen diamonds were actually insured jewels meant to be stolen as part of an insurance fraud scheme. Despite Nota Bartolo's arrest and subsequent jail time, most of the diamonds were never recovered, and the identities of his accomplices remain uncertain. The Antwerp diamond heist continues to be studied as a case of extreme criminal sophistication and a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities that can exist even in the most secure system. It remains a legendary tale in the criminal underworld, showcasing the lengths to which diamond thieves will go to secure their fortune. Operations at Cabello represent one of the most significant and recent episodes of Marian apparitions in the Catholic Church, taking place in the small village of Cabello located in Rwanda. These apparitions have been the subject of intense scrutiny and veneration, particularly due to their prophetic messages and the dramatic historical events that followed. The apparitions began in 1981 when a group of young people reported visions of the Virgin Mary, who identified herself as Nyina wa Jambo, or Mother of the World. The initial apparitions were experienced by a student named Alphonsine Mumerki, who later reported seeing the Virgin Mary while praying in her classroom. Alphonsine Mumerki, who later reported seeing the Virgin Mary while praying in her classroom. Over the next few years, the apparitions continued, and other young people joined Alphonsine in witnessing these visions, including Marie Claire Mukang Ango and Palai Muka Mazim Paka. These apparitions were marked by their vivid and powerful nature, with the Virgin Mary imparting messages of peace, prayer, and repentance. One of the most striking aspects of the Cabello apparitions was the content in the messages conveyed by the Virgin Mary. The messages often included calls for prayer, reconciliation, and conversion, but also contained prophetic warnings about impending suffering and disaster. The visionaries reported that the Virgin Mary warned of violence and turmoil that would befall Rwanda, urging the people to turn back to God to avoid the suffering that would ensue. These prophetic warnings gained particular significance as the Rwandan genocide unfolded in 1994, a tragic event that saw widespread violence and the loss of life. These apparitions were recognized as authentic by the local bishop in 1988, and the Vatican later confirmed this recognition, declaring that the apparitions at Cabello were genuine. This recognition was accompanied by a deepening of the devotion to the Virgin Mary in the region, with many pilgrims visiting Cabello to experience the sight of the apparition and seek spiritual renewal. Cabello apparitions are notable not only for their religious significance, but also for their profound connection to historical events. The warnings of impending violence and suffering were eerily precise, reflecting the deep turbulence that would engulf Rwanda in the years following the apparitions. The fact that these messages were received by the visionaries during a time of relative peace in Rwanda adds a layer of poignancy to the story of Cabello. In addition to their prophetic content, the Cabello apparitions are marked by their vivid and detailed nature. The visionaries reported seeing the Virgin Mary in various forms and locations, often accompanied by dramatic visual or sensory experiences. These apparitions were described as being accompanied by strong feelings of peace and holiness, contrasting sharply the often disturbing content of the messages. The site of the apparitions of Cabello has since become a place of pilgrimage and spiritual significance. The local Catholic community, along with visitors from around the world, gather at the site to pray and seek spiritual guidance. The shrine at Cabello has been a focal point for many who are drawn to the messages of Virgin Mary and the hope of finding solace and reconciliation. The Cabello apparitions remain a powerful testament to the enduring presence of the divine in the midst of human suffering and the complexities of history. They serve as a reminder of the role of prophetic visions in the Catholic tradition and the ongoing quest for spiritual understanding and connection. These apparitions at Cabello continue to inspire faith, reflection, and hope, even as they stand as a poignant reminder of the tragic events that followed.